You own a small business, and it ain't easy, and it may be going okay. Or you could be stuck and barely making ends meet. It's about time for a pivot. Welcome to Small Business Pivots. It's time for you to generate some cash, some real cash. How does $1 million sound? Only 9% of small businesses earn over $1 million annually. But your host is a business coach and an entrepreneur. And we're going to talk to the small business owners who've done the $1 million and more. It's time to be inspired. Welcome to the 7-Figure Club. This is Small Business Pivots. And now your host, Michael Morrison.
Welcome to another Small Business Pivots. I am your host, Michael Morrison. I'm a passionate small business coach who helps business owners who are working hard and not getting anywhere. Having owned numerous businesses myself, I've walked in your shoes and know from experience the things that you need to know to build and scale your business. If you'd like to explore how a small business coach could help you and your small business succeed, go to my webpage, michaeldmorrison.com. And if you want to schedule a free consultation with me to learn more about how a small business coach could help you, click the Let's Chat button in the top right-hand corner. Or if you're just looking for additional resources for your small business success, check out my other company, Boss. The URL for that company is businessownershipsimplified.com. There you will find small business resources for online classes, master classes, mastermind groups, books, additional coaches, culture building tools and exercises, networking events, and much, much more. Our guest today is Cash Miller. Cash is a true American success story. Before he became the CEO of Titan Digital, an award-winning digital marketing company with offices in 4 states, Cash served in the Army, where he learned the value of hard work, discipline, and determination. After leaving the Army, Cash put his skills to work and started Titan Digital 12 years ago as a small SEO company. Through sheer grit and determination, he grew the company into a powerhouse with over 600 clients and a reputation for excellence in the industry. In 2022, Titan Digital made the Inc. 5000 list, a true testament to Cash's leadership and dedication to his craft. But even with all of his success, Cash remains humble and focused on his mission, which is to help businesses achieve their marketing goals and grow their bottom line. What sets Cash apart is his deep knowledge of digital marketing and his commitment to staying on the cutting edge of the industry. He's not content to rest on his laurels. He's always looking for ways to improve his business and provide the best possible service to his clients. Through his leadership and expertise, Cash has built a company that truly reflects his values and his commitment to excellence. With his eye firmly fixed on the future, there's no telling how much more he'll achieve in the years to come. So let's get to our guest and learn the pivots he made to build his empire. For those listening to the audio, you can't see the background or the color of shirt. He is wearing green in the background behind him. The words are in green. So, yep. Cash, welcome. Yep. Well, hey, let's get started here. We have a lot of small business owners that look to us for advice, pivots that maybe they can implement in their business. If you were to tweet your life or business, or maybe just a few words, where you are today, what would that look like, sound like?
Much further along than I expected. Ooh. Yeah, and because where I'm at today and where I started, like we've got like 30 employees, and when I first started this business, it was just myself, and I had just gotten out of the military and such. So at that time, I couldn't predict what it would be. So I didn't try. And, that's the thing. So it's further along, but it's like, it's an interesting ride.
Very cool. Well, I know for a lot of small business owners, we can't say that. We still have a ways to go. And I understand you always got more to accomplish, but that's a great response. So I know for a lot of small business owners, we are kind of our own, roadblock. So whether it be mindset from a traumatic event or an upbringing, or, for me, I was kidnapped by gunpoint as a toddler by my biological father. And I kind of lived the introvert, lacking of self-worth, and a lot of us go through that as small business owners, and it keeps us from reaching those, goals, stretched goals. So there anything that kind of stands out in your life growing up that maybe we could relate to?
Well, I think, when it comes to business and something like, I tell people I've only done really two things in my life. My family is entrepreneurs at heart, but I also spent 7.5 years in the military. And in both things, the military and business, you need a lot of mental fortitude. Businesses have a lot of swings. When I was much younger, I joined the military with the idea that it would help teach me to become an adult, take care of myself, do the things that I need to, and learn how to really take responsibility for my own life. And then as a business owner, you're doing a lot of the same things because now you're taking responsibility for other people's lives, in a sense, because, they're on your payroll and such, and you're going to maybe do a little coaching, mentoring. You're going to deal with a lot of people, but you are going to go, depending on how your business goes, through a lot of swings. And if you are not mentally prepared for that, I know of, like, I used to, at one time I had a partner, okay, and I don't anymore. And the difference that I would tell people is that I understood the risk. I was prepared for it and the ups and downs, and he was never quite that way. Okay. And so I knew that while he thought of himself as an entrepreneur, it wasn't really what he should be doing, at least when it came to like having other employees and stuff and being the bigger picture of things you're going to be responsible for. And if you don't have that mental fortitude, if you cannot handle those swings, it may not be what you should be doing, because it's a roller coaster. And when you're running a business and you're at the top, you are how everything the buck stops here.
Yeah.
It's always going to stop with you no matter what. And if you're not prepared to do that, you shouldn't necessarily be running a business. But if you are prepared, if you understand that those things, you're going to be able to face them and you're ready for those swings, it's a really rewarding thing. But that's the thing. You have to have that fortitude. If you don't have it, you're going to struggle with it. Because you'll come to work one day, you'll be in the office, like every day. I got a nice office. I like working in the office versus at home. And I love the place. It's great. But man, you get an employee issue, you get some client that decided to quit, you have a down day. And then the next day you just signed your, biggest customer ever. And it's like this mental high and you're like, wow. And especially if you helped close the deal, you get even It's even more it's an adrenaline rush of its own. So you've got to be prepared for the swings.
We hear a lot about mindset. And I know for a lot of business owners that I work with, we can't just change on a dime. So how did you kind of adapt to having that mindset that you can deal with those? And any book or maybe just some advice you can give to those that we can't just change on a dime? If I'm lacking self-worth, I can't just say, oh, I'm worth $1 million, and so that's how I'm going to think. Any advice in that area?
I personally, so I'm I'm an avid reader. I do a lot of podcasts, like listening and stuff, but what I've pivoted, and I've read a lot in just my life in general, but what I've done over the last few years because of, mindset and things like that, I'm not real big on reading like inspirational books and be like this and like there's a lot out there. But what I do go for are stories. I want biographies of either business people or the companies, because most of them, like a great one is like Shoe Dog, where you have Phil Knight and how he built Nike and everything. And the idea is to see the struggles and the things that they went through to be able to get where they are, because they developed a certain mentality as they're building their business. And you get to put yourself in their shoes some. And I think as business owners, we have to find sources of inspiration. In some cases, if you're struggling, just to keep going, to know that someone else was in something similar, a similar situation potentially, or at least a significantly a situation that was extremely challenging for them. And they were able to overcome that. That's how they became, what they did. And all business owners face these things at one time or another. So to read, and there's a lot of stuff out there, to read these books, like say everybody says read the next management book and all that. And I've read plenty of that kind of stuff. But to me, I want to see how others got where they are.
Yeah.
Whether it's the book I read, and on TV and stuff, they're coming out with some great shows nowadays that are more business centric and such. To see the kind of stuff they go through. The Founder's always a great movie and stuff that's, about McDonald's and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Keaton, he's really good in it and everything. And I've probably watched that movie, 10 times, 15 times or something to see, because he has these epiphany moments. It's like, wow. And the other one I really like, amazingly, so Jobs has multiple movies, but I like the one with Ashton Kutcher best, not the other one that came out later. Yeah. I want to see the early part, and I've watched that movie multiple times. So, and podcasts, I like there's a Business Wars podcast produced by a company called Wondery, and you see the stories of going against each other, what it took, but also they're talking about how these companies really evolved over time.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, I need that. I need some place to kind of, I say, when you're at the top, you can talk to other people, but there's certain things you can't, say at times. You don't always have a confidant, and you need places to draw strength from. And that's where I go, is typically because there's always going to be challenges that they faced, and that's what's going to be talked about. I love it when the founder writes the book. A couple of the best ones I read, Shoe Dog, and another one, but Grub Hub. That is so, and that one's a really great book. If you've never read it,
I have not.
The founder of Grub Hub, it's called Hangry.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's the founder of Grubhub, but he tells the story after he's left Grubhub. He's gotten his exit and stuff, and he wrote it just a few years ago. But throughout, he's telling the story of how he built Grubhub with a partner and stuff, and people they brought on investors and everything. But at the same time, he's looking to rediscover himself, and he bicycles across the U.S. So as he's doing that, he's telling you the story of how he found it, and he had to rediscover himself. He's very clear. He was so burned out, went through so much, and he said this is so he was doing the trip across the United States, and it took him 4 months.
Wow.
Because he had lost who he was. Because businesses can be a challenge like that.
Absolutely. So, well, our podcast is fairly new. I think this is episode number 9, possibly, but no one's given that sound advice, because that is awesome. I never thought about, instead of those personal development, the last guest we had on, she was like, I'm so sick of all the rah and hip. It's like, I got it. But you can't just shift your mindset when you're having a crappy day, and so that's good advice to hear. And not only that, but just know that I'm not the only one going through everybody has struggles. And
business is a struggle. It is. And like I say, and you don't necessarily have a support system. Some people do, but a lot of them do not, to be able to share what you're kind of dealing with and stuff. You can't necessarily share it with employees and whatnot, because then it gets around to everybody else that you might have working for you. So that's not going to work. So you've got to be able to find ways to revitalize yourself. And sometimes you got to do it on your own, but you still need sources of inspiration to do it. Whenever I'm on a long road trip or whatnot, then I pull out the podcast stuff and I see what they went through, because it's other different companies, whether it's a big brand or not. They're very interesting stories, but it's a lot of them are the struggle to survive. Everybody's, what we see with some of these large companies is where they are currently, but we don't know where they came from.
Right.
Yeah.
One of our, I think 3 or 4 episodes from now is Kara Golden, founder, CEO of Hint Water. She's going to be on our show. She has a great book called Undaunted. Oh my gosh, hauling water in the back of her car here and there. And you just don't hear that. All you see is the big CEO, multi-billion-dollar company.
Another a great person to follow and stuff. Sarah Blakely, she's the founder of Spanx. Yeah, and she has an awesome story that I've read and stuff. But she was, before she founded that company, and she did it, kind of because of the job she had. She was selling copy machines door to door.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, late 90s and stuff, and literally taking the whole machine. It wasn't copy machine. It was fax machines. And she's literally hauling the whole fax machine into this office to show them how it worked and why you should buy their fax machine. I'm like, if you could sell fax machines, you can sell about anything. And she's totally an inspiration. She did one of those, they got that master class that's out.
Yeah.
Touch, and she's on there along with like Robert Iger, the guy who runs Disney and stuff. There's a number of them, but her master class is it's awesome. So and it tells of those those struggles, but you see through that struggle how they became what they became. Because the struggles they mold you. They don't. It's not just done. You are taking a lot from that.
Yeah, I often get asked from business owners that I've worked with, am I the worst small business you've ever worked with? And I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's always somebody worse. So just for a vote of confidence and voice of hope, business owners, we all go through them, even coaches. Like I'm a coach and I have business coaches because I still struggle from time to time in uncharted waters, if you will. And so lots of nuggets there from others, but I want to hear your success story. So how did you get started in marketing? You've been in business since 11, is that right? 2011-ish?
Yeah. I founded the agency in 11, and it's interesting. So you're a business coach, and it's in a way, business coaches helped me get into this business.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, I'm an Army vet, and I had run a business, but then I went back in the military. I was burned out, and I decided to shut it down, and I couldn't do it anymore. And I had been in the military. Like I've only done really two things. I was military, run a business, military, run a business. Yeah. I never held a job for anybody else longer than 3 months. And I haven't had a job in 28 years for anybody else. So when I went back in, though, I was really burned out, said I would never run another business. And I was like, no, I can't do it. But that only lasted a few months. And then I'm like, well, now I'm in a 4-year contract, And so what I decided to do, it was 2007. And I decided, I surf the internet and stuff, but everybody's building websites. I would love to take my experiences and see about sharing them and stuff. Maybe I can help some other people avoid some of my mistakes and whatnot. And so I decided to start writing content, and I built, my first website for it. And it was like, okay, this is cool. Now, how do I get people to read this? And I'm self-taught as an SEO. And back in 2007 through about 2015, pretty much everybody's self-taught if you started then. Nowadays, they have like college programs and stuff. Right. To become a digital marketer and all of that, and it's big business, but not back then. And so, I wrote, and I was actually started this while I was deployed to Iraq on top of it. But we would have some downtime, and in the evenings, and I would do some writing, and eventually I'd written about 100 different posts and stuff before everything was like blogs were out and they were being termed that, but I thought of them all as articles and stuff, and I was putting them on the site, and I'm like, I can't keep writing all of this stuff. Yeah, so I went and started reaching out to business coaches, figuring they're writing this kind of content. Nice. And sure enough, and I ended up building up a network of about 24 coaches, and they were submitting content. I'd give them a backlink to their website and stuff. Well, some of them, I was developing some relationship. To this day, I've got a guy in California that runs growth source coaching, and he's like, we're still friends to this day. But they started giving me the content. I would give them the backlink, but I developed a relationship, and him and some others started asking me how I was getting the traffic. And I was like, well, I can help. And they were like, okay, how much do you want? And I'm like, and I was charging a couple of $100 or something.
Wow.
But the thing is I was able to help them, and I was able to see the results from that. And I started really diving in. It's like, wow, I'm actually getting something out of this. I'm making some money. Okay. But, it's not going to exactly cover my bills or anything, but it's cool. And it's, allowing me to learn more. And as I dove more in, eventually, as I was getting, fast forward to like 2011, I'm getting near the end of my contract. I'm in Afghanistan, and I'm like, yeah, so re-up's not really a great idea, and I thought maybe I can make a go selling SEO. So I packed up the family. I was in Colorado. I live in Tennessee now, moved here. And I was like, I literally, I rented an office. I said, I got about 6 months worth of runway to make this work. Yeah. And I hustled, like you do when you're starting a business. The first business I had inherited from my father, who had passed away in like 2000, and I took it over, and I was already, in the business. This one I was starting from scratch, and I had no foundation or anything. I'm like, okay, like I know how to run business. But right now that business is just me, and so I hit networking meetings. I like reached out to everybody I could. It took me 2 months, and you talk about struggles, 2 months to find my first client.
Wow.
Yeah, like beyond what I had done in the military, my first official, like, yes, you're hiring me to do this, here's your contract and everything. It's not just, side money. But after that, it was like, I think I got my next one like a week later. And it's funny, the first client, I had them for 12 years.
Wow.
They only left because they retired.
That's we can align there, because my oldest working client currently was my very first client. So yeah. I get it.
Yeah. And I actually helped, like build that website and stuff. And it was the most atrocious thing, but they would never let me, like build a new one for them. They didn't want to spend the money. And it's like, it was a hardwood flooring store, but it was like, okay, maybe I can do this, and so, now I fast forward like a year and a half later, and suddenly I've got about 5 employees. It took me 6 months to hire my first one. I say by the end of 2012, now I had like, 5 other people working for me. I'm like, geez, this is actually turning out to be something.
A real business.
Yeah. And it's like, wow. And the thing is to compare like my previous company and stuff, I had shut it down because I was burned out and everything, but I'd gotten over 20 employees at one point. And it was like, well, it was a totally different business and whatnot. And it was in Las Vegas, and it was like really stressful. This one, I was like, okay, if I'm going to build from the ground up, what do I want to build? And I was like, well, I can do this marketing thing, but the other advantage is everybody can pay me up front. So because cash flow in any business is always going to be, a big consideration.
Yeah. So you got your feet wet, if you will, in the marketing, and thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Got your feet wet. What you got past that sleepless nights when you started feeling a little more comfortable? What do you think contributed to that? Because I know a lot of business owners that approach us and our team, they feel like they say, I'm stuck and I can't get over that next hump. What do you think contributed to your getting over the hump?
So in the agency business, I tell this to other people, that you end up running into multiple like revenue roadblocks. It's just what happens. Initially, your issue is that if you're doing the work, you're not outselling. If you're outselling, you're not doing the work. Okay. So you do end up having to, figure out staff and stuff like that. And then of course that's taking away from what you're making. Yeah. As you do that. So you have to consider, and this, can apply to, pretty much any business to some degree. When you're running a company, you want to take a really hard look at what you are actually providing. Like, who's your customer base? Yeah. Like we're like a general agency where we can help pretty much, I've dealt with people in every sort of industry you can think of, but we do have concentrations. We first pivoted to building up a concentration with independent insurance agencies because we could tailor our product or our service specifically to them. When you go after, so one strategy for any business is to hit on, a specific niche because of the fact that you can tailor what you're offering to them. And you can also show a level of knowledge. Like if I get with an insurance guy, I can speak all day long, and keep up with them. And I know what they're talking about. So you can show off a level of expertise, and that builds a comfort level for them as a potential customer, with you. So if you, like I say, it depends on what you do, but those possibilities exist. And it's not even that you have to like I say, we're still a general agency, but I have concentrations in certain areas that we have a larger number of clients, and we've tailored things to them in those particular ones. So when we decided to do that, it allowed us to partner with other people, in those particular realms. And that helped accelerate growth, to find partnerships that could actually pay off. Because I've been approached by, hey, we'd love to partner with this and this and the other thing. But a lot of times, partnerships are all about, you have to understand if you don't put in, they probably won't. So if you're not doing it on your end, you're not going to get anything out of it. Yeah. Everybody wants to be on the receiving end of a partnership, and they got to be we have to do the work end. Right. Yeah. So, when you're doing, you're trying to grow everything, what you're looking for is the roadblocks. And some of it can be how you're gaining clients. Some of it can be how you're operating internally. Yeah, we've made multiple changes that can be have been very significant over the years. That some could be staff changes. There was a time back in 2017 or something, and I decided to focus more on the insurance, and I had staff that didn't like this idea. Okay, because what we did in our business, we build a lot of custom websites and stuff, and I said, we're going to build templates for these people. Because we can resell the templates. We're going to put everything we can into making this the greatest site you can, but I'm building a product, or a service model around it specific to them. And, so you're going to get potentially pushback whenever you change directions on an agency. We weren't giving up everything else we were doing, but we were putting a lot of focus on being able to bring this out, because in this area, we could do a lot of conventions and stuff. We could build our client base. And now I've got a few hundred agencies that are clients, but you can end up with pushback. And the thing is at the end of the day, when you get pushback for staff, it can be a hard thing. Don't be afraid to make the change that, people move on. You are the one constant in your business. Even if you have a partner, that could change. You are the one constant that will be there every single day. And all of the things that you have to deal with, a lot of these other people don't know it. And you can't share it with them. But I literally, in 2017, I saw where we were going to go. I saw what needed to be done. I mean, I walked in the door and I fired 5 people in one day, because I said, you're not part of the future. You're all pushing back and don't want to be part of it. But also, I can't the way I'm pivoting is for the best for the company, because frankly, I'm the owner of the company. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I may get it totally wrong, but that's still not going to be your problem. That's going to be my failure if I do. Yeah. So you have to be in business. You got to be willing to make hard choices. And some of those, and it turned, like I say, I've got a few hundred clients. So I think I made it the right choice at the time. Yes, it can be painful for other people. It's painful for you. Nobody likes to do that kind of thing. It's not a proud moment to go and say, hey, you're all out of a job. But you have to understand that you are responsible. You chose to go into business. You are responsible for the hard choices that have to happen. And if you are not willing to make them and follow through, then your business is likely going to fail, because if you can't do that. But if you can go through it and then do the follow through, you're going to be a lot more successful. It's not about being mean to people. It's not about being a jerk boss or anything like that. But I've seen plenty of times, we have a really good benefits package. We have, we pay, to the industry and stuff, we've got hybrid, work. Yeah. I let people make their own schedules when it comes to that stuff. And you're still going to get people there. Doesn't matter what you do. They're not going to be happy about it.
Right.
You have to accept those things. You have to understand that you're stuck in the toughest position. But if you can accept that and you can make those hard decisions as you move forward as a business, because a lot of times when people get stuck, they're stuck on something that's going to be unpleasant that they know that they have to do. To move their business ahead. But if they can do it, they can, execute it, do whatever it is that they think is going to be necessary, then they'll get over that hump. They'll see the success they really want to see. I say, but it does come with hard choices at times. Not all of them are going to be pleasant.
Right. Yeah. So in other words, take ownership as the owner. I just had a conversation with one this morning, and he was sharing a situation with his business, and he asked me my thoughts, and my question was, who owns this business?
That is exactly it. Who owns the company? I've had people push back, say I'm call me all sorts of things, because of some decision I made. But at the end of the day, I'm the owner.
Right.
And I have to live with those choices. You're going to be, the likelihood, because we know how long employees last with companies. The likelihood is you're going to be gone in a couple of years or 6 months or whatever, because you're going to find some opportunity that's going to make you, maybe happier than this one does. that's fine. I don't hold any grudges against that. You do what's best for you.
Yeah.
You know? But as a business owner, I have to understand that you're going to do that eventually. Yeah, gone are the days where people stick it out for freaking 30 years. You know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
from time to time, I like to give some business coaching insight as well. And for business owners that are listening, there's a lot of great books. I'm not going to mention any of them, but that will follow a specific framework that says gather your key employees and make these big strategic goals. And I'm like, that's fine for corporate. I understand that's not what I work with, but for small business owners, you nailed it on the head, because not every one of those employees are going to be there. And if you go with their direction and they leave in 2 years, who's leading that ship? Who's got the passion behind it? So you're dead on right there. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, nobody's going to be as passionate about your business as you are, no matter what. You can get some people that are going to be fairly close. Like I've got a president of the company and stuff, and it's allowed me to separate myself some from the day to day. There's certain things I'm working on specifically, and he's handling it. But it's somebody that, I've known for a long time. I can trust in the position and such, and I do think we'll be here down the road. But it's a lot of in most situations, you're not necessarily going to get that. And I didn't have that for years. That's a more like recent development for me to put him in that position. And I've been getting the question of, how did, almost like, what did it feel like, when you're able to do that? And it's like, it was great, but I still have to make, he could, morbid, but he could die tomorrow. And then I got to step right back in. You don't know, so I cannot ever, even if I'm, able to separate some, you can't separate totally. You can't, and with most small businesses, it's, you're never just going to hand off everything, all the responsibility and basically go sit on a beach somewhere. So, it's hard to do. But business owners, they say they've got to, let's say it's a wild ride. So you have to be, you got to hold on, buckle your seatbelt, amazingly enough, it's not a mundane thing. There's a lot of work in being a owner of any company. I don't care if it's a one-man, band or, something much larger.
Yeah, no, that's awesome and very powerful as well. So were there any pivots that you made that you actually implemented something into your business that you kind of saw a robust change in your business? Was there any kind of point that you're like, oh, I did this and it really changed our world?
Well, so in our business, there's a lot of outsourcing models and stuff. And this was another point of contention that came up. A change I made about a little over a year ago is we used to be where we were totally in the United States and stuff. And I decided, I've been working with a partner to deal with some of when we had too much work and we could, our own staff couldn't keep up because we build a lot of websites and stuff. So I had found a partner in Costa Rica. I dealt with people that were like in India, Ukraine, and other places and stuff. And there's challenges. It's a very common practice to partner up with somebody to help with overload and things in our business. But I didn't want to deal with them anymore. And we were only using them sporadically anyway. And I said, because recruiting in the United States, because the salaries are going up and stuff, and we're a small business. So as a small business, I've got 30 total employees. You have to, as an owner, you got to think outside the box a little bit. You've got to get creative at times. And the partner I found in Costa Rica was working pretty well. And it has the advantage for us that it was, they're in the same time zone. They're mostly English speaking. Of course, Spanish is their first language. But and so what I decided to do, I said, okay, it's great to have a partner, but I want staff. And I realized the shakeup this would cause, because at the time, I think we had about 25 people or something, and they were all in the US. Okay. It was 20 to 25, somewhere in there. And I'm like, okay, this won't go over well, but I'm going to start hiring employees down there. And we started, and it was a multitude of reasons. Cost is an issue in the United States for what we do. Small business owners, freaking, salaries, they're getting higher and higher and higher. And I'm not in a cheap business for that. Right. Okay. For the expertise we have to hire. And then on top of it, hiring the expertise. The city I'm in, we have the largest college in the state of Tennessee, but then I'm hiring people that have no experience. And I needed a higher level. And unless I'm willing to steal from, employees from other agencies, which there weren't a lot. And yes, we have remote work and stuff, and that's helped. But, it's what I decided to do is start building a staff. And I had looked at other Central American countries and stuff. And I'm like, okay, Costa Rica. I'm already dealing with a partner. That's gone well. They're not big enough to keep up with what our future needs are going to be or anything. I want the staff permanently on, working for me, because there's also, tighter communication, better turnaround times, all sorts of things, because we're not beholden to somebody else. So we still have the employees. And I actually used LinkedIn to find my initial people. Yeah. And I have a really large Costa Rican LinkedIn network now.
I can only imagine.
Oh yeah. It's great. But what when I started looking at it, I said, okay, who do we need? And I decided that we were going to do most of our fulfillment operations, which means build websites and stuff, do SEO, different services. We're going to put them down there. Boy, that went over like a freaking,
I cannot imagine on that one.
Yeah, that did not go over well. But I had just lost an employee that I needed to replace. And it was actually a couple and on the development side of building websites, I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I'm overpaying for people that do not come with enough experience, and I knew it, and we've been doing it for years. And so I decided it was time to hire there. And I started bringing on people. And now my dev team's down there, my design team, my creative director, I've got account managers down there. I'm bringing on a new project manager and what we learned over time was, how do we vet them well? Well, what I found was I'm able to get some of these people from very large advertising agencies or software companies and stuff. And that's actually been really good for us, because they're coming with a lot more experience, but their economics are different than ours. So I can bring them on. And because another complaint I'd always had was, we have too much work for the amount of staff we have. Okay, that's fine. Well, your salary will hire 2 people down there,
right.
And it's just the reality. I think as business owners, you have to analyze what the situation is. If it is something like that, accept the reality and then figure out a solution. My solution was, and it's not, and we didn't go like, take a bunch of people that were in the US and say you're all fired or anything. What I did was, if somebody left, I didn't replace them in the United States. I went to Costa Rica and I found one. That's how I ended up making the pivot, where it wasn't so, painful here, because, you get people that, somebody will offer them, some big company or whatever offers some, kid that you've had for a year or something that has not nearly enough experience, and they want to pay them more. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You do that. Okay. And then I'll take that same salary and I'll go down there and I'll hire, 1 or 2 people, or, maybe just a replacement, and pocket the savings. But it allowed me to expand the staff quite a bit, take off the workload because everybody's overworked, but now we have a larger staff, yet not spend more money. I've actually cut my payroll overall compared to what I was when it was straightly in the United States. I've managed to chop out something like $30,000 a month. It's significant savings. And that's the thing, which means I can, as a company, maybe put back in, some to other things that benefit the staff as a whole. But that's one of the biggest pivots we've had to make, is saying we're going to use another country, but we're not going to find a bunch of partners. We're going to hire these staff ourselves, and so you have to figure out how to recruit them. You have to figure out, do they have the skill level? Like, the biggest thing we learned is, and now we do it every time. I hire everybody out of the capital so that I can get them together, because we don't keep a permanent office. They're all remote, but we're able to bring them all together. I spent a week down there, had everybody working in a conference room together, because they need that in-person time.
Right.
So we learned recruit there and heavy English. We vet them for English to see what level they are, to make sure that we don't have communication issues. So that's one of the biggest things I had to do, from a company standpoint, but it's paying off tremendously, because they are some of the best people I've ever had in those particular roles, and I've got more of them.
Well, everything you've shared today is fresh and has not been mentioned on our podcast thus far. And I know as small business owners, we can get so blinded by just looking forward. And what you're saying, like, I guarantee there's a small business owner, but that's not applicable for my business. And what you're saying is figure it out. There's always a solution, and it may not sound like it's going to work, but figure out how you can make it work. And that you're being adaptable, I guess.
Yeah, you need to be adaptable because there is probably a solution. So the idea is not that, hey, okay, that might not work for your business. The idea is think beyond your business model of whatever because if most businesses are copied from another business.
Right.
I mean, come on, Lowe's does the same thing that Home Depot does. And I'm pretty sure Home Depot came along first. It's going to be the same. Yeah. Okay. So when you built your business, you started with somebody else's model. If you worked for another company, you probably, you learn that model and you do. So you have to figure out, okay, how else can I make a difference? What can I change? Staff and stuff, what I've often seen, and this is why people hate pivots and stuff, change. Nobody likes it. Nope. Okay. So if you change, and you have to be the willing, as the owner, the person willing to make that change. If you are not going to succeed. But if you are willing to and experiment and try new things, then you will, like you'll have a much better chance of getting somewhere. And I say, that's the idea. It's not your business, whatever it is, there's going to be something that you could probably do differently that would actually propel you quite a bit. Yeah, you just got to be willing to think through it. And the other thing, ignore everybody that tells you it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah, and that's sound advice because I believe it was one of my mentors. He said, if you aren't different, so what you're saying is be different. If you aren't different, you're a commodity.
Yeah, that's
plain
true.
and simple. So now you're competing on price. So I thought that was great advice. And that's kind of what you're saying as well. You won't survive unless you figure out how to work smarter, not harder, be different, things like that. And I can't believe, hey, we're almost out of time. I know we tried to hit the 40-minute mark. We're about right there. I want you to share information on your agency and how to contact you if our listeners want to get a hold of you for web marketing, anything like that.
Yeah, like I say, we do digital marketing. The name of the company is Titan Digital. I can personally be emailed at cash@titandigital.com. And of course, titandigital.com is our URL. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect, with additional people, expand the network and whatnot. We're a full service, digital marketing agency. We build a lot of websites, but I also do a lot of paid ads, SEO, social media stuff. Like I say, we work with, small and mid-sized businesses all throughout the country.
Excellent. Well, I guarantee there's someone out there that could use your services. And any final words of advice? I know you've given a lot, so if you don't have any, that's fine. But any last words of encouragement?
Entrepreneurship is really a very rewarding thing. Yeah. And when you get into it, there's so much that it's a never ending learning experience, no matter what. Yeah. And that's what you need to embrace it if you're going to do it. Yeah. It's not for everybody, but if you choose that route, embrace the learning, embrace the ups and downs, figure out how to get through it. Don't worry about what other people say of whether it will work or not. Yeah. You can make it happen.
That is speaking gospel right there, my friend. I appreciate that. So I appreciate your time as well. We'll put all your information in the show notes and everything. And I certainly appreciate your time again.
Cool. It's been great being on the show.
And one last, I almost went by this. You said you have a podcast. Where can they find you? What's that?
We're doing a podcast. It's Marketing Masters, the agency growth show. And it's me and another agency owner. We get together, we talk about a specific marketing subject so that it can help, business owners, in their company, what might actually be, something useful. So like I say, each one of us, we're focused on one specific topic.
Very cool. So go follow that show as well. Subscribe to ours if you haven't already. And thanks again, Cash.
It's been great. Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed the show. I'd like to welcome you to the Recap and Coach's Corner, where I give small business advice coming from a small business coach of things that you need to do to be working on growing and scaling your business. Let's start with the recap. Cash brought up tremendous amount of insight, nuggets, pivots along the way, but there was one that's often not talked about, because when you ask people what's a great book to read, a great podcast, a lot of times it's in current day, which I mean like the present. So it's a book that just got released, or maybe, within the last 5 to 10 years that have made a significant impact in their life. But I know working with most small business owners, we have challenges. We have the challenge of making decisive decisions that we feel comfortable with. that we know will make an impact in the right direction. And the way to learn how to be more decisive is to learn from history. So he brought up some great people to follow, some books. So he had The Shoe Dog, which is a story about Nike, and he had Hangry about Grubhub's, their rise and fame. Sarah Blakely of Spanx. There's many others. There's Andrew Carnegie of The Steel, the wealthiest man in the world. There's just a plethora of information out there. And I thought that was a great point, because we can learn from either their mistakes or possibly learn some solutions that we're looking for. And as Cash mentioned, not all the solutions are applicable for our business, but it might get your wheels spinning just enough to say, how can I find a solution? They found a solution that worked for them. That won't work for me, but there's got to be another solution. So just keep learning. Learn to earn, as I always say. The Coach's Corner. Speaking of changes and hard decisions, I know that most small business owners have something that's weighing on their shoulders, something that needs to be changed. It could be a small business partner that you're not quite getting along with and it has your business stuck. It could be a key employee that is not friendly or just not working out, that we might need to ask to step away from the business. It could be you're fixing to go through a divorce or considering a divorce. It could be a multitude of reasons, but I know that almost every small business owner has something that's been weighing on them that they need to make the change, and that's what's holding them back from the next step. So my challenge to you as a business coach is to make that change. If you can't make the change quickly, at least recognize the change, put some action plans in place to correct that change, that decision that you need to make, so that you can continue to grow and scale your business. I hope you've enjoyed this show. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Small Business Pivots. A lot of small business owners are feeling stuck, bogged down, barely making ends meet. But it's Michael's passion to help you change all of it. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten some useful advice from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on YouTube at Business Ownership Simplified. See you next time on Small Business Pivots.